Hello, everyone, and welcome to Knittin' and Politickin', a weekly series of conversations. Oh my God, what a day it's been, on issues we face today. And tonight, we're going to talk to a local candidate running for the State House of Representatives, Jay Clark. My name is Renee Hoyos. I'm running for Congress in Tennessee's 2nd Congressional District. I am thrilled to talk to Jay today. The best part of running for office is getting to meet so many great people. And Jay ran for State House District Seat 8 in Blount County, and he was a fine candidate in 2018. And you're going to be able to ask questions of him during the show. So just put your comments in the comment section on Facebook. So we will read them out and Jay will answer your questions. But first, what am I working on this week? Well, in the summer, you work on sweaters, and in the winter, you knit shirts. And so, especially when it takes me as long as it does to knit a sweater, I have to start early in the summer. But this is one I'm working on now, and I think I was working on it last week, but it's really got a very pretty pattern, and this is the front. And I'll be working on the back, and hopefully I'll be wearing it the next time I see you. So feel free to put your projects that you're working on also in Facebook and listen while we talk to this candidate about his platform and campaign. Be sure to post a picture of what you're working on in the comments so we can ooh and ah. And now I'd like to introduce our guest, Jay Clark, running for State House District 8. Welcome to the show, Jay.
Thanks, Renee. How you doing? I appreciate you having me and sticking me in here this evening.
Oh, I'm happy to have you. So Jay, why don't you go ahead and take some time to tell us about you and your campaign and what you want to accomplish. You've run such a great campaign last time, I think, letting folks know where and also where you're running.
Well, thank you. So my name's Jay Clark, and some people call me Scrappy. That's kind of my nickname. But I grew up in Winchester, Tennessee, and came to Blount County, which is where District 8 is at, back in 1992 when I was a student at Maryville College, and now I teach biology there. So, but District 8, there's 2 House districts in Blount County, state House districts. That's District 20, which is Susan Sneed. And then I comprise about 2/3, geographically speaking, of Blount County, including Cades Cove for any of your watchers that have been to the Smokies and that sort of thing. So I love where I live, and I want to serve the people. They haven't been served like they need to lately. So, try to make a change.
Yeah. So what's the one big thing that you want to work on? What is the big issue both in the district and statewide?
Well, I would say in my district, and I know this may sound kind of generic, but accountability. My opponent has not been accountable at all in many ways, and he has a record. I mean, I don't mind. You know how it is. You want to make sure you're careful how you say things, but literally told folks, that he's going to vote on the school vouchers, for instance, here in Tennessee. And for those of you that don't know what a school voucher is, that's where you can essentially, as a parent, apply for the money that you would get to go to a public school, and it takes it out of the public school system, and that's our tax money, by the way, and allows the parent to take that and put it in a private school. And those schools serve their purpose, and I have no problem with them, but I don't think our tax money should be going there. And it's an attack on our public school system. So anyhow, my opponent told everybody, including our county mayor and our Maryville city mayor and a bunch of commissioners and school district leaders and such, all the teachers, that he would not vote for vouchers, and then turned around and did. And he doesn't respond to his constituents. I get that from a lot of people that have come. I've had numerous calls calling me, asking if I could help with unemployment because they haven't gotten any help from his office. Those are the type things. I don't think people in Blount County in a long time, at least in District 8, have been represented the way they should. I've lived there now for the last 10 years, and have lived there off and on for the last 25. And I can speak from experience. The way I got myself into this was because my representatives weren't being accountable or accessible. And that simply means when I have an issue and I call you, And especially if I call you in a very civil, intelligent way and ask you a question or leave you a message and you don't respond at all, that's a problem. And I think in Blount County, unless you're in that big money group, you don't really have access to your state representative in District 8. And I want to change that.
Great. Well, that's a great reason. I know that I've been hearing the same things, from folks all around the district, that their local reps just don't return phone calls, don't talk to people, don't answer questions, or they get a form letter back. And that's, for all that we say about constituent services, I mean, that is the thing that you're supposed to do. You're representing people. You should listen to them and get back to them. And maybe you don't agree, but you should at least acknowledge that they brought a concern to you, and that it's a concern that you thought about, you heard and thought about. So at least, if you can't do anything about it. So, so thank you for that. They will be well served by you, Jay. So before you were a politician, you were a musician, and we'd like to know a little bit about your music and your albums and stuff. So
yeah, well, appreciate you asking about that. I consider it my nonprofit business. It's not a 501c3 or anything, but I have a wife who works for the U.S. Forest Service. She's a forester, and she's my breadwinner, or I'm a NASCAR fan, so I should say she's my sponsor. And because of that, I've gotten to do some different things over the years, include run for office. But I traveled and played music for about a decade, and I have played music pretty much my entire adult life anyway. Been in numerous bands when I was in graduate school at UT, and different things. But I toured for about 10 years, and more or less considered it my full-time job for about 7 or so. And then I've put my first record out in 2004, and I've put out 5 total. And for any of you folks on there who want to support a nonprofit, it ain't tax deductible, but it's all on iTunes and Amazon, all those different places you download music, you can find it. So Spotify, all that, check it out. And if you like it, we'll take money at the campaign instead of my music business. How's that?
Oh, there you go.
But yeah, no, I'm a songwriter, so all my records have been my own, my own original material. Occasionally delves into politics, a lot of environmental conservation themes in my music. So check it out. Cool.
Well, yeah, at your kickoff, you played, and it was great. That was a fun kickoff. Your kickoff. Well,
thank you.
So that was great.
I appreciate that. That was a lot of fun.
Well, so I have to tell you that I love NASCAR.
Oh yeah.
And oh my God, I love going to the races. There's a drag race, a drag racing strip off of 40. Have you seen that one? Like going to Nashville?
That's over in Crossville. Yeah, I'm not too far from there right now. Actually, I'm on vacation on the plateau. So.
Oh yeah. Well, I've always wanted to stop and watch a race there, and I was always, coming and going from Nashville, so I never got the chance. But I stopped watching. I used to watch NASCAR a bunch when I was younger. I really liked it, and then I kind of stopped after a few years. But wow, NASCAR has really done some amazing things, around taking down some of these Confederate symbols. And I just was interested in your thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, I'm actually wearing. A lot of people think this is a Richard Petty hat. This is a Bubba Wallace hat, and he's been in the news a lot lately. And just to prove, I have a picture. I've already had somebody that I met that usually doesn't vote the way I do say something to me about my hat when they found out I was running. They kind of made a joke like, "Oh, I guess you're jumping on the Bubba bandwagon, as a good old progressive or whatever." But I have a picture of me wearing this hat at Daytona on Bubba's rookie season, first race he's ever run in Cup, and he got second. And I was sitting at the start-finish line, so I've been a fan of his for years. So that said, and to answer your question, or to respond to what you said, absolutely. I grew up going to the drag strip primarily as a kid. My dad was a preacher, but was part owner of a race team, and we had a 69 Plymouth Roadrunner. And Dad, you had to go to so many races across the Southeast to compete in the NHRA at the time. And so Dad took all his Sundays off from preaching to go racing. And so I spent a lot of time at the drag strip, but NASCAR has had its ups and downs through the years. I started watching when I was probably about 5 or 6 and really got to be a fan when I was in high school, back kind of in their heyday, back in the late 80s and early 90s. I've been to a lot of races. I grew up very much in a area that made me feel like I was always at the racetrack a little bit, not in a bad way, you know. And so I really get the culture, and I get where people get a little bent out of shape about being attacked. They feel like they're being attacked with their Southern heritage, you know. At the same time, I really think people are realizing this is kind of a watershed moment, and we've been talking about this stuff for a long time. And it keeps coming up, and we need to deal with it. And NASCAR has a new president now, which I've been very impressed with the stance they've taken on all of this, from the very first race when they came back and stopped all the cars, you know, for a moment of silence, to the whole Confederate flag thing. I'm really impressed that they've done that, and they're going to lose some fans. But I would like to think they're going to gain more. And if they really want to be an American sport, you know, this is what they need to do. And so, yeah, I fully support it. Bubba Wallace liked a tweet of mine recently that I put out and gave him a shout out. So I thought that was pretty cool. And he's a UT fan, by the way. His mom ran track at UT
Wow.
years ago. So he actually stops in for a football practice every once in a while, from what I hear. But
Cool.
I'm really pleased. The next thing NASCAR needs to do, and it's probably because they're stuck in a contract, but the Bristol race in August is right now called the Bristol. It's been called the NRA night race for years. And one of the owners of the car teams, Richard Childress, used to be on the board for NRA, and that's how all that happened. And now he's one of the ones that has kind of rebelled against the NRA and got off their board. But the August race in Bristol is still called the NRA night race. So if they can get rid of that and get the politics out of their sport, we'll be in a lot better shape. But I felt like I was in Daytona this year when Trump was there, and it was like being at a Trump rally. It was very interesting.
Yeah.
I kind of enjoyed it. I think my wife was, you know, her head was about to explode. You know Stacy well enough to know. But yeah, luckily we were sitting next to like the only other 2 progressives out of 120,000 people, so we were okay.
Yeah. Well, the next time you guys go to up to Bristol, give me a shout, and if I can come.
Oh, absolutely. And I tell you what, Smoky Mountain Speedway, is and 411 going between that's actually Smoky Mountain Speedway and 411. I guess 411 is right out in my district. Smoky Mountain Speedway is in my district. Both of those are local tracks in Blount County. I guess the one's just over in Sevier County, but it's out Highway 411. Excellent racing. They have some national series come through there, and it's a great night, and they're racing again. And I know people don't want to get out amongst people, and that's wise. However, at Smoky Mountain Speedway, they have some tier parking, and it's just almost like a going to see a drive-in movie theater or going to church at a drive-in. You can bring your own beverages in, adult or otherwise, bring your own food, and you go park at the terrace, and you never really have to leave your vehicle, and you can watch a race. So any of you race fans out there, or people that aren't, you're interested. It's a good old boy sport, but it's one for everybody, and that's what NASCAR. That's what NASCAR is trying to do, and I think it's way overdue.
Yeah, that and Demolition Derby. I almost drove at the fair that we were putting together a women's team, and I was like, "Can I go?" And my campaign manager was like, "No." So maybe in 2021 I'll get to drive in the Demolition Derby.
We need to get you a big yellow, you know, Bonneville or Impala, and put the exhaust pipes up through the back seats so they don't get smashed and all that, and you'll be good to go. My cousin was very serious about Demolition Derby at one time.
So somebody told me over at Napa Auto Parts when they saw the VIN number on the truck that it's actually a racing engine, and that Ford only made about 1,000 of them in
Really?
1976. And they
What's
were
in that
like,
thing?
this guy said to me, that engine's worth $10,000. Be good to it. So I could
Wow.
race the truck.
What's in there? Do you know?
Huh? It's a
What's in there?
76.
Do you know what size the motor is or anything?
I'd have to go look again.
Well, if it's that
I
size,
can't remember
I mean,
things like that.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
No,
So we're
I
excited.
love that old truck. I'm getting my orange Volkswagen, by the way. I don't know if you saw me in it in the last campaign. I've been working on that thing, and I can do a lot of deals, and I love going to the races. Just don't ask me to fix your car.
Yeah.
So the Volkswagen, I'm picking it up tomorrow. I'm real excited. I'm gonna get it nice and waxed up and put those J. Clark magnets on the side of it and put out a bunch of signs Friday, because we got a joint sign thing coming up, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right. We do. I'm looking forward to it. I love signs. So folks that are tuning in, please be sure to ask Jay some questions about whatever you want to know about Jay and his campaign in the comment section there on Facebook. So let's talk about your district a little bit. How about you describe for us the district and where it's at, and the places it covers.
Okay. Well, it pretty much, if you're familiar with Blount County at all, and I know some of you won't be, but if Maryville is the county seat of Blount County. And I have, as far as Maryville City proper, I probably only have about 10 or 15% of the city limits. Okay. And then I have about maybe 20 or 30% of Alcoa and a little bit of Louisville. Beyond that, it pretty much covers the entire county, with the exception of Friendsville and the rest of the city areas that I left out there. So it kind of makes a C shape along Blount County. So if you live in Friendsville, you definitely are not in my district. But if you live in Maryville, Alcoa, or Louisville, you could be. If you live in Rockford, Tallahassee, Townsend, up at Top of the World, the Blount County part of Seymour, Trigonia, Lanier, any of those places that would have that address, you would be in my district. So it's definitely the more rural part of the county compared to the other House district. And as far as back in 2018, you mentioned we ran, and I always try to tell people don't get too caught up in the stats, because we got beat pretty good if you go just by the stats. It was like 72 to 27 or whatever percentage. However, we had the second highest turnout in the entire state for Blount County. Now that's with mine and Susan's district, District 20 as well. But we had 10,000 more people show up to vote in a midterm election than have ever voted, at least out of the last 30 years. And we got within about 250, 300 votes of our win number. So in any other midterm. So 2 out of the 3 midterms, we would have won with the votes that we got. So now the challenge is, yes, there was this big contingency of people that came out that was unexpected. At the same time, they weren't voting Democrat and progressive for the most part. And so, the challenge is to try to figure out, especially amongst the virus stuff, how do we meet those people? Because I'm pretty much a good old boy in a lot of ways. And those folks out there in my district I'm very similar to them. And I think if I have the opportunity to meet them, and that's what sucks about not being able to do door knocking, if I had the opportunity to meet them, it would be a lot easier. So we need help right now for anybody listening. I know candidates always need money, but I need help meeting new voters. We've got a good base in Blount County. We haven't had one in any recent history that I can remember, that are really excited and want to see some change. And I think people are ready for that. It's just a matter of them trusting the people that they're putting in the place to do it. And so if any of you are out there and you've got neighbors, friends, we always say we want to meet face to face. Well, we obviously can't do that right now. If you live in District 8 in Blount County, my cell number is 865-340-9183. And unlike my opponent, I will call you back and I'll listen to what you want to tell me.
Yeah. I think you're just such an ideal candidate, Jay. They couldn't have found a better candidate to run in that seat. And, it is a difficult seat, and it's something I wish that the party would pay more attention to, is the story inside the statistics. You hadn't had a Democrat run in that seat for a decade, right?
Well, there was one person that ran about 12 or 14 years ago, and then there was actually someone a little over 2 decades ago that was a Democrat that held the seat, but that was before the district lines have been redrawn and all that, and they were the first Democrat in a long, long time to have that seat. So there's only been, to my knowledge, 2 Democrats run for this seat in the last 25 years besides me. And so, yeah, and I'm no doubt a Democrat, don't get me wrong, but I'm not a huge party guy. I didn't get into this strictly to push just one particular platform. I want to listen to people and be the representative. And I want people to know that it's so hard to get past that D by your name in Blount County. If you go up and you just see 2 choices. The thing is, I'm not trying to be a career politician, but I am not going to start a political career by lying to everybody. If I were to tell them that if I were to run as a Republican or even an independent, I would have been telling everybody, 9 times out of 10, I voted for people with a D by their name, but I'm going to run as this just so I can win. And that's, it's important to me to do it the right way. Mm-hmm. And we're in it to win it. And hopefully we can meet enough people to make that happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, JD wants to know, Jay, why do people out there keep voting for Trump and his supporters? Why do you think it's like that out there, or anywhere, I guess, in East Tennessee?
Yeah, I was about to say, it's not just Blount County.
It's not just Blount County.
I think that Trump tapped in to something that and I a lot of people want to blame the Democratic Party right away, and there's plenty of blame there. Don't get me wrong. At the same time, I think he tapped into folks that I ran into a lot of folks that are Trump supporters when I was knocking last time and a couple this go around. They were like, I'm not a party person. They're like, I voted Democrat as much as I voted Republican or so forth. But there's only one party that's paying attention to the working class right now. Mm-hmm. And that would be their view. And of course, they're looking at that primarily from a white point of view. But it was just, it's hard to explain it. And I kind of get it because I know a lot of people in my family, and I'm not talking about necessarily my immediate family, but family and some friends who, I guess you would say, drank the Kool-Aid, and most of them now are moonwalking a little bit and like, hey, he didn't turn out the way I thought he would, and I won't be voting for him again. But they're also not excited. Some of them aren't excited about voting for, the Democrat that's running. And that happened last time too. So I don't really know a perfect answer to that, D. I think I think he's told a group of people that have been disengaged for a long time what they wanted to hear. And
he really scratched an itch that was out there, I think that kind of plain speaking really, I think Democrats tend to, we like to get into the weeds and talk about the issues and how if we change this policy, then this happens. And, people are like, I don't have a job. I don't have healthcare. And, and what are you going to do to restore that? And we're like, oh, this policy. Yeah. And so I think, in many ways, that kind of populist rhetoric really, then once you say, I'm going to bring jobs back to the coal miners.
Exactly.
Where's the jobs? And I think, the proof's in the pudding. You can say a lot, but then you got to act. And, a lot of that didn't happen. Yeah.
No. And I think you're right about saying the things that people, the gun thing is a perfect example. Mm-hmm. I'm very much a Second Amendment guy. I've got a whole, case full of guns. I also believe in responsible gun ownership, which doesn't require laws necessarily if you do it the right way. And two, I think it does still require some regulation. You hand Trump any one of my guns and give him the ammunition for it, I bet you he wouldn't know how to load a single one of them, but yet he talks to those folks like he's one of them, and he's not, and I'm not running against that guy. So I try to be careful what I say, but, at the same time, you just got to be honest. It's like, he is not one of them, and he's convinced people that he is. And I think that's what there's D's answer really is. He's convinced a lot of people that he's something he's not. And he's good at making them believe it.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Sherry wants to know, what is your plan to provide health care to more residents of your district?
That's a good question. Healthcare is one of the main reasons I got into this mess. I've had a chronic condition since I was 12. I actually just had an epidural yesterday, so taking it a little easy today. But the first thing is what we've been trying to do in Tennessee ever since Obamacare passed. I hope y'all can hear the chickens in the background, maybe. Sorry about that. But is expand Medicaid. And for those of you that don't know much about what's going on in Nashville or what have you, we have a supermajority, GOP supermajority in Nashville. It's like, I always forget this when I say it, but I think it's 70, there's 99 of them. And I think it's 73 to 26 Democrats or something like that. That didn't add up, but anyhow, somewhere close.
Yeah, they're fighting 26, aren't they?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
And there's one of them that kind of is sometimes not included in their number. But anyhow, so I guess my point is that supermajority, there is very little power on the side of the Democrats. In fact, if they get a bill that makes it through committee or gets introduced in committee that the Republicans like, half the time it seems like they'll defeat it and then they'll stick it on what we call a caption bill later on in the session and pass it like it was their idea. And it's so frustrating. They are not going. There are a few Republicans that will expand Medicaid up there, but I don't see it happening unless we can flip a bunch of seats in Nashville. So my answer to the question, that said, how will we provide? I mean, if we can't pass Medicaid expansion, and I'm not giving up on that by any means, that's our number one best way to do it. I do have some other proposals that I think would be appropriate to bring up with some moderates on the other side of the aisle. How if Governor Lee indeed goes through with his block grant that he's getting, that's supposed to help take care of TennCare and stuff, it's just ridiculous. But I have some ideas of how we could take some of that money and use it in a public-private way in Tennessee to help train our doctors that would also go and maybe serve the public for a period of time if we help pay for their medical school and stuff. Kind of like the way my wife has a PhD in forestry. I have a PhD in wildlife biology. Almost, and you're familiar with those fields, almost all those fields, are master's and PhD level field beyond your, managers and technician jobs and wildlife officers and such. But your graduate school is usually funded, and when you come out, you're not going to have any debt from grad school. But yet, that I'm going to go to school as long as most surgeons, but I'm never going to make six figures. And if I do, it's going to be barely, because I'm going to work for the government or I'll be in academia. Mm-hmm. But those jobs, once you get them, are generally very secure and have good benefits. And it's kind of like this public trust with that whole environmental field. And that may be a way to interconnect the public-private connection in healthcare. It may be hard to pull off at a state level, but hell, we got to do something. But the biggest thing we need to focus on is expanding Medicaid. There's no doubt about it. I mean, that's what drives me crazy is all these GOP folks up there that consider themselves small business and business-minded folks. I don't know of a business person that would have that a pot of money sitting on a table and not take it. Just, it doesn't make any sense, especially when, more than 300,000 working Tennesseans are not able to get a procedure like I had done yesterday so I can still go work. And, it's really frustrating. So expand Medicaid would be first, but I do have an idea to try to mix the two. But the other thing before we leave healthcare, some bills that I can't imagine wouldn't go through that I want to introduce, and has to do with me being a patient. The patient is the one that keeps getting screwed. When there's a reform, or like when we had the opioid crisis, there were a lot of things that happened that needed to happen. At the same time, there are still legitimate patients that, were being helped with various things. And we got to make sure when we make those decisions, we keep the patients in mind. So a couple of mine have to do with billing. I used to get a bill from my anesthesiologist, Anesthesiology of Tennessee, but the bill comes from Michigan, and if you don't pay it in 3 weeks of receiving it, they start popping on a little charge each month. I never agreed to that. I just don't pay it. Most people probably don't know to do that, but that kind of predatory billing to Nova recently, and I don't mind calling them out. I just changed doctors because of the hospital. They give you a 20% discount if you full pay on the day or before your procedure. You better watch your mail, because that 20% bill shows up. It showed up on me 3 times in the last year and a half. And I just lost my dad a little over 2 years ago. And when my mom's sitting there, drowning in medical bills, and the bill comes in and says, this is your final notice, or this is going to collections, she's going to pay it. Instead of, she doesn't have the time to go look at her explanation of benefits and compare it and go, wait a minute, I paid that. That's my discount. So those type things. I think there's a lot of money being taken away from good, hardworking Tennesseans for their health care. It's already ridiculously expensive, but we need to make sure that the patients aren't, being preyed upon by these companies. And a lot of them are from out of state, and they don't give a damn about us.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I've heard that complaint many times. Your insurance pays it, but they keep billing you, scaring you into paying it, and then you got to fight to get your money back.
Yeah, and you don't even know it some of the time.
Yeah,
so
that's bad. Well, those are great ideas, Jay, and it's so important that we elect you, because we need to have those things, you and other Democrats, because I think that is part of the big statewide platform, is to expand Medicaid. And we've had many options, and I think the reason they didn't want to expand it earlier was because they said the money's only for a few years, and then what happens when the money goes away. But I've made a commitment in my campaign that I'll make sure that that money stays available to states so that they'll still have access to it. It's important that our people are healthy.
Yeah. The fear was with a cost share, with the state, what happens when the 10 years runs out or whatever. And, part of it was, well, if you expand Medicaid, you're going to have a healthier population, and you're not going to, hopefully within a decade, you would see some changes. So, I don't know. It's really aggravating. The state legislature they're just heartless when it comes to the healthcare issue. That's all I know to say. They're just heartless, and we need to get those guys and gals out of there.
Yeah, no, I hear you. We've been talking a little bit about the need to provide rural broadband access. And as we were setting up today, we got a little taste of that. And I know that with COVID-19, with our schools spending several months online, and how that affected folks in the rural areas, or trying to do telemedicine, or just trying, even before all this happened, it was really hard if you didn't have broadband to have to use your minutes on your phone. Because right now you're on your phone. Am I right?
Yeah. I'm on my phone, but I'm using my Wi-Fi, and I'm up on the Cumberland Plateau over in Overton County, and I'm staying in a cabin on a friend's house, and not going in his because he's elderly. But he was like, "Yeah, I have some Wi-Fi in there out there by my old barn. You have to go stand at the corner." So it took me a while to find a good spot, and I was trying to use my computer, but it didn't want to work. So for those of you that are like, why is he standing there holding a phone right up next to his face? That's why. But the broadband is incredibly important, and the COVID stuff, I'm not sure how some of them are going. There's places in my district you don't have cell coverage and you don't have broadband. Your only access to any kind of internet service would be through your phone line, if you're lucky, So it's extremely important, and it's another one of those things about the haves and have nots. Blount County is considered out of our 95 counties in the state, it's probably in the top 10, definitely top 15 as far as wealth. But there's a lot of haves and a lot of have-nots, and there's not a ton in between. It's either or. So the broadband is one of those examples. If you pull up a map of that, some folks will say, well, that's intuitive. It's the hardest places to get it are going to be the last place to get them. At the same time, there's any house up and down this road has a student in it, potentially. And what are they supposed to do with the whole virus thing? And then the state legislature still wants to insist on doing standardized tests and everything like it's a normal year, which dings teachers, if they don't do well. So there's no excuse not to have broadband everywhere in Tennessee, really.
Yeah,
right
you've
now.
got an electric line.
Yeah.
You should be able to have broadband. I mean,
Absolutely.
that was the big challenge of TVA when they were established in the 30s and 40s, was to bring electrification to the valley. And we need to have that plan again to bring broadband to every person living here. And if we can bring electricity to every house, I don't know why we can't bring broadband.
Yep. And that makes me think where I'm at, there's a cemetery about a mile up the mountain here that I've been to. And I take my class at Maryville College. There's a music class that I took there a couple years ago. I teach biology, but it was being a songwriter. We did a course, like an experiential learning course called Sounds of Appalachia. And so I brought them over here to Overton County. I took them up to a cemetery, and I asked them just to walk around and see if there were two things I wanted them to notice. And based on some of the songs we had talked about and kind of themes we had studied, and it always amazes me. It takes them about 10 or 15 minutes, but somebody will go, well, one, there's a bunch of little graves that are unmarked that are obviously infants. Yeah. And I say, well, that's number one. What's the other one? And it takes them a minute, but somebody will come back and say they stop around 1938, 39, 40. And that's because, we brought healthcare and we brought some of these services to the people in these rural areas. And we didn't have the infant mortality after FDR, because we changed that. And when we look at the discrepancy in broadband, it's the same discrepancy, whether you're talking about broadband or healthcare or whatever. It's the same generally group of marginalized people. And it usually is our working class that's going to be the guy up on top of our roof, if we have a leak, or the gal that's going to bring us our food at a cafe, and we need to make sure they're getting the services that all of us have.
Yeah, absolutely. All these things are really important. It's important that we have a population that's healthy. Now, Jay, COVID-19 has thrown all of our plans out the window for campaigning. Oh my God. So Tracy wants to know, what has your campaign done to adjust to this new world?
Well, we have all had to adjust, and we're still adjusting. We initially went into more of a relief effort. We started calling seniors right away in the district. I think we ended up making about a little less than 4,000 calls so far, but and checking on them, doing welfare checks, see if they need anything. We've shopped and stuff for about 20 different seniors. I fixed, patched the lady's roof, made a run to the vet, different things like that. But as far as the campaign goes, and this, Renee, already, all our strategy was based on outworking our opponent, and which isn't that hard, unfortunately. And two, really, we knocked 9,000 doors first go around. We were going to try to double that, which would almost get us to every household with a registered voter in our district. We have 65,000 people in the district, about 22,000 households with about 18,000 plus that have a registered voter. So, when you take that off the table, and then you take these live in-person gatherings at people's house, fundraisers. I mean, I don't know a lot of rich people, and I know you don't either. So, we're living $30, $40, $50 donation at a time, or $5 a month or whatever. It's a lot harder to get that right now. You know, it's like if I call the person, you get it. But because you're not out in the community at all these events like you normally would be, and not seeing these folks every day or having the opportunity to meet new people, there's been a lot of adjustments. So one of the things that we're doing is we're about to start doing kind of what you are doing, a weekly show. We decided to do ours a little different. I don't want to say a whole lot about it. It's going to be about 12. It's only probably going to be about 12 minutes. And we're going to put it out every Tuesday night, and it'll be fun. And I hope it'll be out here in another week or two, but we're going to do an episode every week, and it's called Scrappy Time, and it'll be fun. So there'll be a chance for people, for all you dog lovers out there or pet lovers, we'll have a little clip each week called the Dog of the Day. And you can send in a video to us, and we'll put it in there and all that good stuff. But no, that's kind of the newest exciting thing that I have going on, because I need to make sure we can make a splash and get some recognition. I mean, you know, I've got a great base, and we are meeting new people, but I'm not meeting the numbers I need to meet. And so any way we can get them, and I can't stress to y'all listening enough, give my cell phone number out to your neighbors, friends. You know, they're probably going to get my voicemail, but I will call them back, and it's 865-340-9183.
Great, Jay. Well, this is so exciting. I'm looking forward to your show. Ours is from 6 to 7. So could you?
It won't be from 6 to 7.
Okay. I'll plug you, Jay.
We already thought about that. And it's got 3 segments in it, and we'll be releasing a segment each day also, you know, like on Wednesday, and then another one Thursday, another Friday. But no, we already thought about that when I was looking at times. So I was like, we got to make sure we don't conflict with Renee.
You know, this has brought out the creativity in all of us, because yeah, I mean, my favorite part of campaigning is door knocking. I love it. And before the virus hit, I was like, I'm going to call time for money for 4 hours a day. And then I'm going to go walk for 3 hours, and I'm going to be in great shape, and I'm going to talk to a lot of people. And then bam, lockdown. Yep. And, you know, we're just like, you know, I know we share the same feeling, like this is a really serious virus.
Yes.
And it's my responsibility that I don't put my staff at risk, that I don't put the community at risk, and we're not going to do it. Yep. And we're on our 3rd day of spikes in Knox County, and I think Blount County's, you know, creeping up there as well. So, you know, it's incumbent, and it'll be interesting to see what, you know, other campaigns will be doing, if they're going to door knock, if you know what I mean. So, yeah. So yeah, I think you're a great candidate. I'm thrilled to get to know you. I'd heard about Jay Clark for years, and was so thrilled to get to meet you. And it was great working with you in 2018. And I'm glad you came back. I know, at least for me, it was hard to lose and think about coming back. But I think it's important in these districts that we run a couple of times. Yes. Because, you know, people aren't used to coming out and voting for Democrats, and they're not used to going to the polls and seeing somebody there that represents their you know, their interests. And so it's important that we always make sure that all the spaces on the ballot are full, so that people know that when they go to the polls, they'll have a choice. So Jay, I want to thank you so much for coming out today, and for talking to me, taking time from your vacation, and to do this. We're going to put a link to Jay's website and giving in the comments. Folks, this is the end of a fiscal quarter for many of us, and it's real important that we donate to as many candidates as we can. A buck to one Democrat is a buck to all Democrats. So if you're thinking, oh, you know, I've just got a limited amount of money, try to spread it around, because all these campaigns can't work without money. Yep. And it's real important that we support folks that are working really hard in districts that have not had the kind of attention from folks that are more progressive, like it should have in the past. And so if we want to encourage people to run in these districts, we got to support them. So please go visit Jay's site. If you can do it before midnight tonight, that'd be great. But certainly put Jay on your list to give in the coming months as we approach the November election period. And to remember to get your absentee ballot, request it as soon as you can, fill that thing out and send it back in. Please don't go stand in line. My God, I think it's going to
Yes.
be really in Knox County for sure. It's going to be a long, slow process just do an absentee ballot. So thank you so much, Jay, for coming on the show. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll catch you next week at 6 o'clock for some more knitting and politicking. Good night, all.